Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our Virtual Assistive Technology and Community Living Summit for 2021. My name is Regina Ann Smith. I'm a staff attorney at Disability Rights New Jersey, but I'll be your host today for this session. Today's session is entitled Culturally and Linguistically Sustaining Practice in AAC. And I'm joined today by our esteemed presenters, Christina Royster, Alma Partida, and Jill DeBrownstein. I'm so excited for today's presentation. There's just a few housekeeping things before we get started. We obviously encourage you to make sure that your name is correct in your box and maybe include your organization or type it into the chat so it gives everyone a sense of who's participating today in the session. Please keep your microphones on mute and your videos off to guard against background noise and distractions. You can definitely use the chat area to add comments or to engage with the presenters, share information, and ask lots of questions. So just because your video is off, your microphone's off, doesn't mean we don't want you to fully participate today. There will also be a time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. And any questions that the presenters don't have a chance to answer that are in the chat, I can email them for them to answer later on. You can also unmute yourself to ask questions and continue them to take them in the chat. A recording of today's presentation will be available within the next few days. Let me just make sure we have live captions on. And if you plan to obtain a certificate of attendance, you must complete the survey at the end of the Excel spreadsheet where you clicked on the link to join today. If you would like to engage with the captions, please click on the CC button located either at the bottom of your screen if you're on a laptop or a computer, or it's at the top of your screen if you're on your phone or an iPad or tablet. If there are any handouts or presentations, you'll find them in the Excel sheet along with the collective and collaborative session notes where you can engage and put your own notes into that document as well. If you need help at any point during the presentation today, I encourage you to reach out to me via the chat function and a direct message, or you can use the Zoom tech support link to talk to Mike or Naomi, who they are on call to assist as well. Please be patient as there may be lots of people seeking help at the same time since there's only two of them managing that Zoom tech room. But we are so thankful and grateful to have three amazing presenters here today, and I turn the floor over to them to take us through culturally and linguistically sustaining practices in AAC.
Thank you so much. We're excited to be here. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen, so just give me a moment. Okay, so hopefully it's on the right one. I will be having to click out here and there just to be able to go into some videos that we have, but yeah, we're going to go ahead and get started. So this is our presentation, Culturally Linguistically Sustaining Practice in AAC with Diverse AAC, and we are going to go ahead and introduce ourselves. I believe, who do we usually have go first? Is it myself? I think I'll go ahead and go first. I'm Christina Royster. I am the owner and founder of Play on Words Therapy. I am based in Maryland and Washington, D.C., licensed in both. And I also work in a local school district in Maryland. I'm doing on an AAC team. So I kind of do a little bit of both of schools and private practice. And then I'm going to pass it over to Alma.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you guys for joining us. My name is Alma. I'm a bilingual SLP in Northern California. I am in the school setting. However, my background is in AAC. I received a grant through my program that trained us on treatment and assessing. And my specialty is in bilingualism and AAC. And I'm so excited to have you guys join us to learn more about diverse AAC.
I am Jill DeBrownstein, and I am the owner of JDB Speech and Language Services out here in Southern California. And I have a variety of different areas that I specialize in, AAC being the primary one, along with literacy is my focus. And I work with the mod severe population. And so the three of us met out of an interest of back in April, I believe, 2020, through Dr. Zangari brought a bunch of SLPs that were interested in looking at the current systems and what the AAC applications and systems offered for a diverse population of users. And so the three of us came together and decided to kind of put our brains together and figure out how to provide this information and the latest and updates on within the system. So we've been doing presentations ever since, and we're having a blast. As far as our disclosures go, there are no financial disclosures, relationships to disclose. However, all three of us as SLPs have received subscriptions and or codes or access to applications and software, including LampWords for Life, SnapCore First, Proloquo to Go, TouchChat, WordPower, Grid3, and as well as Lesson Picks.
I guess we need to change that to TD Snap.
Oh, yes. Our talking points today. So we're going to go over the importance of diverse representation within the AAC systems. We're then going to go into some light tech AAC options, strategies, solutions to individualize AAC devices and materials, and then future outcomes and announcements within the AAC systems.
And I also forgot to mention that our slides are available in the session notes portion. We put a link for our slides if you want to take your own notes on there.
In the Google Doc, yes. So I'm sure that we can all agree that the goal of communication is to convey and share what we want, when we want, using the words that we want in order to represent our thoughts, ideas, etc., and so on. And as SLPs, we have a responsibility to be mindful when we select our assessment tools, along with our materials that include books, visuals, passages, music, etc., in order to represent not only your client, but also their community. And then also looking into including materials that foster a worldview. And so until about a year ago, many of the AAC systems were pretty significantly lacking in the ability to program the device so that it was capable of representing a variety of diverse users in the area of icons, vocabulary, dialects, and languages. And so for over the last year, as I had mentioned, the three of us has set out to educate and encourage and spread awareness to our fellow SLPs to bring you the most current updates and workarounds for some of the most commonly used AAC apps and systems. We know it's really difficult to keep it up to date with all of the changes, to know where to find those changes. And so we also posted in the Google Doc, we have a YouTube channel that we have video workarounds. So follow us on our social media and on our YouTube channel for those updates. So just providing you with a way to stay in touch with the updates.
All right, and here we have just a quick overview of different types of AAC. I'm sure you may have seen something similar. So we have unaided, which usually does not require any additional tools. This is a person being able to move their own body to communicate a message. So this would be by using body language or sign language or gestures. And then we have aided AAC, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. And this requires an external device or something that helps them communicate. And this can be in the form of a light tech system or a high tech. And we chose to say light tech as we're moving away from using the words low tech. So light tech would be like a communication book or something you print out. PEX is an example, pod book, or a photo album. And then we have high tech, which would be like the use of an iPad or a speech generating device. And both of them have pros and cons.
So we also just wanted to show some of the various systems and many of the most popular systems that are on the market right now. And we wanted to show some of the symbols that currently many of the apps choose as their default ones for representing the symbol for I. And that's what you can see here on the left. We also want to just point out that, right now, a lot of AAC users do have difficulty creating a personal likeness to really represent themselves, which is the most important part, because as we know, many of our users consider the AAC system part of their identity. And so either the user themselves or the professionals working with that individual have to go through a lot of steps, especially with programming, to individualize and personalize the devices and systems to fit their needs. So we're hoping that obviously that won't have to be the case for very long. And a lot of the companies are starting to make a lot of good changes. But as you can see, right now, a lot of these systems, the default still can kind of come looking pretty similar and maybe not as representative to the user. And so we just wanted to share that this is a matter of respect. This is, as professionals who respect the right of communication, we also want to encourage our users to accept this device as part of their identity. And the National Joint Commission for the Communication Needs of Persons with Severe Disabilities states that all individuals have the right to clear, meaningful, and culturally and linguistically appropriate communications. And we need to remember that when we are the professionals that can be sometimes the first time introducing a system to a user and a family. And we also wanted to show the Communication Bill of Rights. Many of you all might be familiar with this already, but we still wanted to just highlight, as we know, these are all different rights that every person has as a communicator and as a human being. But we wanted to highlight the areas that you see here with the arrows, that every individual has the right to be offered choices, to learn about themselves, and to be communicated with in a dignified manner. And we think these also are very representative of how a user is, feeling about their device, how they feel like it represents them. And, these are important to think about, because if a device has, just for example, a voice that doesn't really match maybe the user's cultural or linguistic background, they may not be able to interact with others in their environment in the way that they see fit, or the way that they would feel like would represent them and gain them the most respect. So that's just important to think about when we are doing those programming. And this is, kind of our main focus and why we are trying to spread awareness and increase knowledge about this area.
So as we talk about the use of AAC, early intervention, we know is not only critical to the development for at-risk children, but it's also a federal mandate for those that qualify. And under IDEA Part C, it's also mandates that infants and toddlers with a disability use assistive technology devices and services, and AAC is covered under this section. Those of us that work with those that use AAC, we often get that question: is it going to prevent my child or my student from the use of verbal speech? Won't it delay it? Won't it have an impact on it? And actually, studies have shown that it does not have an impact. My professional experience is that it actually increases their verbal language. And so studies have shown just the opposite of that. So early intervention and exposing them to that light tech visuals up to high tech is very beneficial for our users. As Alma had mentioned, some of the early forms of AAC are often used as early as 6 to 8 months. Typically, those will fall into the no tech and or the light tech category, and those include gestures, sign language, pictures, photo albums, in order to talk to family and friends. This is a very common use of these variety of systems. And then we know that neurotypically, children develop a sense of self-awareness around 15 to 24 months. And so, as Christina was saying, it's really important for us to be mindful about what we're choosing to use as materials in order to, and or as we set up AAC systems and or light tech devices and materials, that it represents that client as close as possible to the likeness of their themselves and their family and community. And then as their theory of mind develops, we know that they start to realize that they know that you know that we know. And so it's that whole sense of, I know that you know that this doesn't look like me. Why am I using this icon that has nothing to do with the way that I look? How does that, is this really a true representation of myself? And that's really critical if you think about their value and how they look at themselves. So it's important that we make sure that we're using something that represents them.
So in grad school, I did my a literature review on bilingualism and AAC, and the research was at the time scant. There was hardly anything, but the leading researcher in this area is Dr. Gloria Soto from San Francisco State. And she has said many, many times before, you know, there are no detrimental effects to introducing a second language on an AAC device. I think that's a common myth. First of all, parents are told, number one, they're told, please wait on AAC, don't introduce high tech until later on. And then they're also told the second myth, which is if they struggle learning one language, they're gonna struggle learning both, and that is completely false. And Dr. Gloria Soto emphasizes on making sure that devices are culturally accessible, that the trainings are family centered, and shying away from an actual parent training and more of a collaborative effort to help a student learn their device. And what I also found in the research that once bilingual families were introduced to signs or an unaided method, they preferred those over high-tech AAC. So it's just important that AAC is not an all or nothing, right? You can be a multimodal communicator, use gestures and AAC. So I think the earlier the better with high-tech bilingual AAC. So they have the bilingual capabilities to express themselves. And then some considerations for when using AAC in the home language. You must be pretty competent in knowing that second language, because modeling language on an AAC device in a different language than English is going to be different because the syntax is different, right? So in Spanish, we have like a noun and then an adjective. In English, we have like an adjective and then the noun. So it's not the same thing to just like translate icons and place a Spanish word over an English icon, because your syntax and your modeling will be completely different. And Dr. Gloria Soto emphasizes on not translating core word lists. So core word lists are really determined by, you know, a set of students from that specific population, and Spanish has its own core words that they, you know, master at a certain age. And some of them are similar, right? Like no is a pretty common core word that is present in English and Spanish from the very beginning, but a lot are not. So, you know, just remember not to translate. And this is a quote from one of her research studies. When creating a bilingual system, it's not enough to just simply translate the same vocabulary into a different language. So this is very important to keep in mind when considering AAC in the home language.
So we're just going to briefly go through just, you know, how does even just starting with light tech with pictographic symbols, and how you can even look into diversifying light text systems, because we are going to cover a lot on high tech, and that's what our YouTube channel focuses on as well. But you know, right here we have some core boards. We even have thinking about that diversity is not only representing, you know, your complexion in terms of your skin color. It's not only representing, you know, your gender. So also thinking about that it, you know, diversity also includes disability. So whether or not someone has a visual impairment could impact the way you know, format their symbols. So we have here some high contrast symbols. Also, you can think about, you know, maybe using even photos. If you can't find a symbol that best represents maybe a particular food or a particular, obviously a person in someone's environment, use photos, because that's going to be the most authentic. Using community symbols, so things that are really available in that environment. So like here we have, you know, a library symbol. If that's going to be something that that child or that individual sees in their community, use that symbol, print it out, and use that as something that they can use. And you also just showed here so that there are obviously some software programs like LessonPix offers a lot of different options for customizing, particularly for appearance. And we really just wanted to point that out, that they are very strong in that area. Also, we have different visual supports that are often use in classrooms, especially, for those younger kids. Visual schedules, those can be personalized, thinking about, how you can incorporate throughout the day in that particular individual's, daily schedule. So you can use a communication placemat. And we listed kind of where we got each of these from. The letter boards, and again, lesson picks using, I actually was in a classroom earlier this morning, and a student their high-tech device was charging, and we also had a backup system that we made through lesson picks, that they could still communicate in the environment even when their device was currently, at the time, it was dead. And also we have here communication boards and books that many of you all, I'm sure, that are familiar with. We have pod systems, so thinking about the symbols that are going to be even on these symbols, on these systems is really important as well. And customizing that fringe, because yes, we talked about core, and Alma touched on how, we can't just translate core words, but thinking about the fringe, fringe vocabulary is going to be different based on the environment, very much so. So we need to think about what's important to that individual. This is me too. Okay. So we also just wanted to share, just as I mentioned before, lesson picks, but there are other options too. And we wanted to make this visual to just show you some of the features that they have in terms of diversity and, that ability to customize for the various kind of the software systems that are out there right now and that are most widely used, especially, in school systems and even in private practice. So feel free to check that out. But yeah, we highlighted kind of what they are able to do at this time.
And in regards to free AAC resources and for multilingual users, what I often do is I'll type in Spanish into either Google search or Teachers Pay Teachers communication books. So I'll type in Tablero de Comunicación, which is like the direct translation for communication books. I'll type in CAA, which is the Spanish name for AAC because it's Comunicación Aumentativa Alternativa, AAC, CAA. And then pictogramas is like another name for, or a name that is commonly used in Latin America for icons. And another resource that I like to use is I like to go on Instagram and follow Latin American SLPs that are doing AAC work. There's one from Chile, and her name is Acercar, ACERCAAR. And then Comunicar, which uses CAA. They're both really great Latin American SLPs, and they have trainings for parents. And the parents don't have to live in Latin America, but their trainings are fully in Spanish. So those are some good resources for Spanish speakers. And then in regards to personalization of AAC, so this is something that we discussed in Carol Singari's focus group last year. We talked about all the ways that we would want a device to seem and look like the user. It's not, like Christina mentioned, not just about changing the icon to look more like their skin tone, but it's more than that, right? And I touched a little bit on the importance of selecting vocabulary that's relevant, how we wish that the devices can have like a more representative of a dialect, different voices, and the ability to code switch. So we'll touch a little bit about some of the apps that have these capabilities and their areas of growth. And the reason for all those importances is because keeping the family and student involved in language selection process is just very important. Personalizing the device needs to happen immediately with the students' unique culturally or linguistic considerations in mind. So having them be a part of the personalizations of their device is just very important. Vocabulary that includes extended family, non-traditional foods, religious engagements, those are all cross-linguistically available, and all images are appropriate across culture. So this is just an important slide about personalizing the device to meet and fit the needs of the user.
Okay, so we're going to start by looking at the physical features in high-tech devices. And so when we talk about the ability to change skin tone, many of the creators of the icons, including systems or companies like SymbolSticks, PCS, which is the Mayer Johnson board maker, icons, Smarty Symbols, I think it was about a year ago, last fall, that they came up with the ability within each system that uses that that set of symbols to offer a variety of skin tones. So symbol sticks is used in Proloquo, Touch Chat, Snapcore, Grid, and Cough Drop, along with some others. And there's up to 5 different ones there, skin tones available there. PCS is found in Boardmaker, Toby, Dynavox. And then also the Smarty symbols is used both for high tech in the Speak for Yourself, but also to create some light tech and just interactive materials. And then the Unidad symbols have some specific symbols. You can't change the skin tone there, but they already came with different skin tones. So we have created, as I had mentioned on our YouTube channel, some workarounds. This is just one example within Proloquo, a video to show you. There are other ones for different systems. So we'll just demonstrate or show you how on our video for how to change the skin tone in Proloquo.
Just give me 1 minute to exit out. It's not responding to me. 1 second. I might have to stop share for a second. 1 moment. I lost my window. 1 moment. Okay, there we go. Now let me find you all again. Okay. Since going back in person, I'm not as tech savvy with Zoom anymore. Here we go.
Everybody, welcome back to our channel, Diverse AAC. Today, we're going to teach you how to change the skin tone using your Proloquo to Go communication application. Fairly simple. You just start by selecting the settings wheel. Then you're going to go to appearance, scroll all the way to the bottom. Under skin tone, you're going to select the skin tone and you'll notice that it automatically populates your skin tones of all of your icons on the screen. Exit out of that. And then you are ready. I like it. Follow us for more information on how to diversify your AAC.
Oops. Okay, now we're here. So we also want to talk about other physical features. And then this is an area that the developers are still kind of moving slowly on, because we think it's important, again, to represent all types of diversity, including disability. So whether someone uses adaptive equipment, even thinking about their features like hair texture, hair color, whether or not someone wears glasses, whether or not someone wears a head covering. So just things like that, we're hoping one day the companies will be able to, even just offer kind of like a drop down menu of like, okay, well, I want all of the people to have this, or randomize, like what some of the companies have done with skin tone is that you can set the default to have randomized skin tone. Sorry if you see a cat that likes to jump in whenever I'm on Zoom. But in general, we feel like that right now there aren't really any workarounds that are available to show you a video. But some of the companies, especially we felt like that Mayor Johnson, they do offer a wide variety to look for, like, kind of choose from. So if you go into the people icons, there are a wide variety of different people. And also sometimes you can search things like, wheelchair or, stander, things like that. And you could find someone in that adaptive equipment and use that as your symbol for I, but obviously there's still room for growth in that area.
And here we have listed some of the different languages offered by the top AAC apps. Lamperts for Life is one that uses English and Spanish and has an easy toggle button. Touch Chat has English, Spanish, and others. And we've created a workaround video about, we'll talk about it later, about code switching to create that English and Spanish button. Snap Core First has a few languages, Proloquo to Go. And Proloquo to Go is one that is often used in Latin America by, like I mentioned, the Spanish speaking AAC therapist, I think because of its, relatively low cost as compared to the others. So they have developed a lot of resources to help any Spanish speaking Proloquo to Go users. And then on the second page, we have a few more apps and their language, like Cough Drop, Grid for iPad, and Avas. I'd like to point out that a lot of these apps are direct translations of English. So they've taken the English vocabulary and simply translated it to a different language, which is not ideal, but it's the best option we have given the circumstances. So I do use a lot of these apps with my bilingual users, despite the fact that it is a direct translation and sometimes the modeling and the syntax will be off. And then we want to mention that this is not an exhaustive list, and many of the apps continue to add more languages. And we have information about each app and their languages in a crosswalk. It's kind of like a Google Doc that we've created, and we update that crosswalk with any recent upgrades as we get them. And you can find that crosswalk on our Instagram page. I believe there's a link tree, and then you click on crosswalk. And so, like I mentioned, here's the video on code switching. So there's some apps that come with a toggle button already created. On Touch Chat Word for Hour, you actually have to create the toggle button. And so on our YouTube channel, we've showed you a video of how to do this. I think we're gonna watch it now.
I'm gonna try again. There we go. Worked a little bit better that time. Okay.
If you have a user who needs access to 2 different languages, you can make 2 separate profiles. So this is different from creating 2 different vocabulary sets. But once you've created a vocabulary, you're happy with all of the changes and the settings that you've made, what you could do is save it as a profile. So I'm going to show you how to do that here. Go to Menu, Settings, and then up here at the top, it's Save Profile. I'm going to choose the test profile 60 basic, or you can create a new name by typing into here. But I'm just going to use this one that I've already made and save it again. It's asking me if I want to overwrite it, and I will choose yes, and done. And so now this profile is saved with all the voice settings and all the other changes that I've made. And I also had a Spanish set that I've already created and saved that profile as well. So as you can see down here at the bottom right, I have made a button that says Español, and I just chose a symbol that showed 2 different, voice bubbles. You can choose any symbol, make it any color, anything you'd like to call it. But I'm going to go up here to Menu, Edit Page. To go into edit mode, I'm going to select this button I've made, edit this button. I'm going to go down here to the button Actions, and what I'm going to do is add. I'm going to scroll to select profile here, and I'm going to choose the Spanish one because I now want this button to take me to Spanish. I could have, the button, I could add an action that makes it so it says Español allowed, but it's really, up to your preference. I'm going to choose Save and Done. So now when I select it, it goes into the Spanish language set. And as you can see, I've already made one here that goes back to English in the bottom right as well. So if I select that, it goes back to my English set. And again, it's really up to you. If you wanted to say English or Spanish, English or Español allowed, you can always do that. It's really up to you.
Okay, let's jump back. Let me just make sure. Okay. So the voice and dialect features, we just wanted to point out that, Acapella is already, a system or a company, I guess, that a lot of the popular systems use and a lot of the device companies use. So if there's one update made in Acapella, like in terms of adding a particular voice, and we're going to talk about that towards the end of the presentation, then typically that means it's going to be available in almost all of the apps around the same time. Sometimes, it might vary by a week or two, but in general, if, Acapella's made a change, it's going to be available in all the apps that use it, which is really nice. There are also other options like Voice Keeper that kind of use voice banking. So like if someone wants to preserve their voice, if maybe they have a degenerative syndrome, that they could, record their voice and then keep it for later. There's also things like Vocal ID that use more of like a crowdsourcing feature where they take a lot of different voices that people have kind of donated their time, and you can kind of make your own voice using a combination of others and choose one that really represents what you want. There's also options to change the pronunciation that you can do that could be a little bit more tedious than just choosing, a dialect from a drop down kind of thing, but it's still an option that we are going to show you. And so we're going to do the workaround for Lampboards for Life. And here we go. Getting better every time.
Sometimes you may need to change the pronunciation of a word to make it more personal. For example, if I'm working with an individual named Matias, for example, on this personal page in Lampboards for Life, I can go here.
My name is Marshes.
And as you can see, it does not pronounce Matias in the correct way. So in order to change that, I can go to Menu up here on the top right, go to the first one here that says Edit Pronunciations. And now I'm going to add it to one of the ones on the list. So I'm going to choose the plus sign and first type the word that I want to be pronounced differently. So I'm going to type Matias. And now I have to figure out phonetically how it should be said. And you can test it out by pressing pronounce. So let me try one example. Matthias. So it's not exactly right. It's closer, but not exactly there. Let me take out one of the T's and see if that makes a difference.
Matthias.
That's pretty accurate. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better. And so I could keep playing around with it, but I'm going to go ahead and choose save and then done. And now
My name is Matthias.
It's going to pronounce it in a more correct way without having to change the spelling in the message bar.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so we are going to now talk about vocabulary features within the AAC systems. And when we're talking about vocabulary, the robust systems have thousands and thousands of icons and symbols. However, many of our users that are unable to spell and/or program their device themselves rely on us to either unlock or unhide or add these vocabulary that's really important for them to be able to say what they want when they want, using the words that they want. And so we were looking specifically in the areas of gender inclusive pronouns, advocacy, and then also mature vocabulary. Some of the feedback that we got from the developers was that some of the restraints and constraints that they have in doing this has to do with their hands being tied with some Apple ratings and stuff like that. But we would really like to show you some of the new workarounds in these areas, and then also some programs that are now starting to offer some of these vocabulary. So SnapCore first, Tobii Dynavox has some wonderful already available page sets in the area of medical needs, advocating for themselves in the area for safety, reporting abuse, and then also intimacy and dating. And so these are some great examples of page sets that are really important for our users to have access to in order to be able to advocate for themselves. So we wanted to show that. So there's not a workaround because they're just available. And so we hope that more systems will be including that. Then we have Proloquo to go. Oops. There we go. Oh, okay. Within the Grid 3 by Smartbox, they have developed a new system where you can choose the level of vocabulary. And so as your young child or as a parent chooses the ability or to unlock that more mature vocabulary, you have access to choose which vocabulary level that you want for your user, which is great. So we hope that to see more options available like this. And then as far as inclusive pronouns, a few months back, I think within about 6 months ago, Proloquo to Go from AssistiveWare came out with the ability to add inclusive pronouns, gender inclusive pronouns to their system. And so here's a workaround on how to program that in Proloquo to Go.
I think we just have it available on our YouTube channel, but it's not part of our presentation just due to time constraints.
Perfect.
I'm muted, sorry. As many of you all may have heard, that Acapella has released an African-American female sounding voice, Tamara, and that's available in, I guess all of the ones that use Acapella now. I know they kind of released them in a staggered, based on the app, but I'm pretty sure that all of them do have it now. As you can see here, AssistiveWare, PRC Saltillo, and Toby Dynavox all have it available. They are currently working on a male voice and children's voices, so a boy and a girl sounding African-American voice. And actually just this week, I was sent a survey to name the boy and the girl voice. So it should hopefully be coming soon.
We wanted to include this additional resource that it's a new book coming out. We believe it's supposed to be published in 2022, next year. It's called AAC For All. We have not read it, but it looks to be a great resource in the area of diversity within AAC. Okay, so we wanted to talk a little bit about the future, and as Christina mentioned, there are some child voices and male voices coming for AAE users, so we're really excited about that. We also have gotten feedback that we hope that there's going to be additional physical features such as cultural attire, hair, eye color, glasses, disability, assistive technology, dialectal variations, more increased in culturally relevant vocabulary sets. And then, as Alma said, hopefully some improvements in the area of fully bilingual page sets that are not just simply translated, but truly have the ability to code switch. So if you want to keep up with the recent developments and the new changes within these systems, feel free to follow us on Instagram at Diverse AAC. We have workarounds on our YouTube channel that we're constantly updating. But any questions or comments that you have, feel free to reach out on our email as well, diverseaac@gmail.com. Thanks so much for having us today. We appreciate the ability, the opportunity, and thank you so much.
Thank you. And I guess we have a couple minutes or a minute or so. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute. Other than that, that's everything.
Well, ladies, thank you so much on behalf of our Assistive Technology Program and Disability Rights New Jersey. We are so grateful for the three of you today and all of the resources and information that you shared. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you for having us.